Welcome to Play Disc, the musical analysis podcast in which my brother and I take a deep look at one full album per episode. My name is John Porterbill.
And I'm Harrison Porterbill.
And Harrison, before we get into today's episode, I have a little game I'd like us to play.
Uh-oh.
It's called Can You Guess My Daughter's Favorite Band?
The Wiggles.
I have a daughter who is 8.5 years old. She is very into music lately. She's exploring all sorts of rock and pop music. We see her walking around the house with her big old earphones plugged into her smart device all the time. She's constantly listening, and it surprised me to find out what her favorite band is, and I was hoping to give you a crack at trying to figure this out.
The Aquabats.
We should be so lucky.
Devo. I have no idea.
I mean, when I think of what would an 8.5-year-old girl be into, especially among things that are popular in the charts right now.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, would you believe
Ariana Grande?
Would you believe it's Imagine Dragons?
Oh. I don't know how to react to that.
I don't know where I went wrong.
I mean, I don't want to,
yeah, you know what?
hyperbolically overreact, because Imagine Dragons is the new Nickelback, and I already feel kind of bad for all the years and years of dismissive disdain towards Nickelback. Not that they give a crap. And I don't really feel that Imagine Dragons deserves the disdain, but I also don't feel that they're all that remarkable either.
Yeah, I went for the cheap joke there, but I'm on the same page there. They're fine. It's weird to me that when you talk about a band that has popular appeal, Imagine Dragons is definitely that band. It's just
I'd be more comfortable if you had said Mumford & Sons.
Yeah, Mumford & Sons, they have a bad rap, but they have been doing some ambitious stuff in the last few years.
Where'd this pencil mustache come from?
I don't know. Let me stroke my Van Dyke until we figure it out.
Gotcha.
No, I mean, I can hear musical forethought and a musical character in Imagine Dragons' music. So I don't want to get too critical. I don't want to dump on them. I don't want to jump on that bandwagon. It's just so interesting to observe a band that is supposed to have this huge, massive appeal and then watch that in action as my own daughter gets really into them.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, well.
I've tried to ask my daughter. I've tried to ask her, what do you like about this? What is appealing about this to you? I'm trying to be non-judgmental. I'm not trying to be like, why do you like this? But I am trying to be more like...
Yeah, give her a complex. That'll be great.
Like, what is it about this music that speaks to you? And she goes, oh, no, I just like it.
Right. Anyways, this intro tangent has gone on for quite a while. What was the point of this?
There was no point. I just thought that was fun.
Wow, I thought you were somehow going to tie Imagine Dragons into Old Crow Medicine Show. I was really excited to see how that turned out.
No,
so
not
when
this
talking
time
about
around.
Combining a bunch of different sounds all into one sonic quality...
No, you did it this time. Okay.
Pulled that straight out of my ass.
So, we haven't even done the formal intro yet. So today's album is the 2014 album by Old Crow Medicine Show. They are a bluegrass band that formed in Virginia but now live in Tennessee. And this is their 6th studio album.
Jesus, they've been playing that long?
Oh, yeah. It's called Remedy.
Sorry, I intentionally didn't do any background research for this album, at all. So, I know Old Crow Medicine Show are a band that exists. I know this isn't their only album, and that's about it.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, I said 6th. This is their 5th studio album, but they also have some EPs and live albums and live at Austin City Limits and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it's their 5th proper album by what we're considering albums. Came out in 2014. Now, Old Crow Medicine Show are famous in a few different circles. They have a lot more crossover appeal than your typical bluegrass album. I was thinking about how to introduce them via an oblique question that would then tie back into how I was going to talk about this album. And really the closest...
So, on that topic,
Uh-huh.
because I think I've got an angle here.
Oh, hit me.
So when you think of musical conflicts, you know, what's something that really comes to mind? Like where I'm talking about like a fight, I'm talking about a war. You know?
Oh, so you mean like a beef? Like,
Yeah, kind of. Because like when I think of conflicts in music, my sort of go-to is the East Coast versus the West Coast.
oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
And I think it is just great to see a musical act really working as a singular whole to bridge the gap between country Eastern music and country Western music.
I was going to say, it's almost like coming together of all those One Direction fans who were on Zayn's side of the breakup and all those One Direction fans who were on the side of the rest of the band.
I'm sorry, I don't listen to hip-hop.
That's fair.
And yeah, sorry, that's the best I've got.
Old Crow Medicine Show. So, when I was trying to think of an oblique intro, the best I could come up with was to ask you if you have a guilty pleasure. Some kind of music that you enjoy that
Jonathan,
you don't
I
want to
still listen to
admit.
pop punk music. I still listen to ska. I don't have guilt.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm coming from on this too. The reason I thought to discuss it from an angle of a guilty pleasure is because of some journalism about Old Crow Medicine Show that I saw contemporaneous to when this album came out. And emblematic of that criticism, I am going to quote from...
Criticism in the secular sense.
Yes. I'm going to quote from the official AV Club review of the album Remedy.
Go for it.
The members of Old Crow Medicine Show didn't grow up playing old-timey music. Frontman Ketch Sekor wasn't born with a fiddle in his fat baby hands. Guitar and banjo
Red
player...
flag?
Yeah, I know, right? Guitar and banjo player Critter Fuqua, whose given name probably isn't Critter, didn't entertain his kindergarten classmates by plucking out some Carter family jams.
Red flag.
Yeah, rather, Sekor, Fuqua, and all the rest of OCMS were born, raised, and weaned on alt-rock and punk. Specifically, as Fuqua says in the bio for the band's new record, Remedy, on Nirvana. And the rest of this review basically is spending all of its time trying to convince the reader that Remedy is a punk album, or it's a metal album, or it's anything but a bluegrass album.
Wow, that is a very critically dysfunctional lens.
Yeah, and that's the main
Like
reason.
I can see how you can get there. That's an interesting tangent.
Skipping to the end of this review, the final paragraph is, Old Crow Medicine Show is one of the preeminent forces in the roots and Americana music world, and it's easy to see why. They were even inducted into the Grand Ole Opry in late 2013. But for those who are able to look beyond the mandolins and fiddles and focus instead on the group's loud, fast, and loose aesthetic, Old Crow becomes more than just a bunch of hillbillies warming up the crowd before they tap a keg of moonshine.
Holy. Can you dog whistle white people?
I know, right? And this was not some freelancer that they hired. This was Mara Eakin, who was their music editor at the time. She stayed with the site for like 4 more years after this review.
I do feel the need to point out that this is an AV Club review,
Yes.
and that AV Club has something of a particular audience.
They do indeed, and I think the whole point of this review was kind of to... understanding that this is a really awkward metaphor, to kosher this band for the audience that they wanted to listen to it.
Yeah, I guess.
They wanted to say, hey, it's okay. You can listen to Old Crow Medicine Show and not be embarrassed about it because it's not really a bluegrass album. This is a punk album. I mean, I know it's got fiddles and mandolins and an accordion.
And banjos.
And pedal steel. Yeah, it's got fiddles and mandolins and banjos and a pedal steel. But listen beyond all that, and you can hear that is really a punk album at heart. Which...
I mean, that's not wrong. It's just, God, that is such a bad way to approach this.
That's kind of like telling a Jewish person, hey, that was very Christian of you.
Oof.
That's
mighty white of you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, my take on this.
You just triggered my guilt for liking this. Because, sorry. I just sort of wanted to circle back to the guilty pleasure thing. Because I like bluegrass music. Yeah. I can't explain why. I just do. I'm not a country boy. I sweat if the AC set above 72. I would not survive a day in Appalachia. But I don't know, where we grew up, there was a neighbor across the street from us who every couple of days would sit out on his porch and play a banjo for like an hour or two. Uh-huh. And I guess I just kind of like bluegrass music because of that. And sometimes I feel bad because I'm a city boy. I'm not supposed to like this. I'm not supposed to relate to it.
Supposed to. Yeah, okay, sure.
I'm not supposed to like hillbilly music.
By the way, the AV Club review and you just now used the word hillbilly. And I know we're putting off talking about the actual songs on this album even more by my mentioning this, but I did want to point out that when Billboard music was still a new institution, hillbilly music was the official designation they gave to country and western and Appalachian bluegrass music.
Wait, what?
So a band like the Old Crow Medicine Show, if they had been around in the 1940s, would have charted on the hillbilly chart.
There was a hillbilly chart?
There was the mainstream chart, which had, like, Sinatra. And then there was the hillbilly chart, which had country, western, and bluegrass music. And the other major chart they had, you probably know this, I don't know if our listeners do, the other major chart they had was called Race Records.
Right, that was country music.
No. Race Records was R&B.
Oh.
They were called Race Records because they were any record that wasn't by white people.
Yep.
Those were the official designations. So you had regular music, hillbilly music, which is, they're too white.
Yeah.
And Race Records. I can't make this stuff up.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's weird because I don't really think... I don't know. We live in a post-Beverly Hillbillies world, I have never been mistaken or identified with the word hillbilly in my life, but I know it definitely has an unkind point of origin.
Yeah, I wouldn't use it non-ironically, that's for sure.
I mean, I tend to use it almost affectionately. Like, I literally do call this hillbilly music, and it's not like a point of shame. It's not like, oh yeah, you caught me listening to the music of those hillbillies. It's just like, yeah, no, I'm listening to hillbilly music. What do you think about it?
All right, fair enough. So, let's tie this into the music. Old Crow Medicine Show, first of all, I can't believe we're 25 minutes in and I said first of all. I can't believe I did that. Old Crow Medicine Show I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they are the most famous bluegrass band in the world. Controversial?
Currently
no?
active.
What do you think? Okay, yes. Most famous, currently active bluegrass band in the world. I think maybe there's
Because, I mean, we all know the most famous bluegrass band in the world is the Soggy Bottom Boys.
Oh, yeah, those legends. But rumor has that they never really even existed, that there was really only like 2 or 3 of them. But the only witness is that dude with one eye and not even a very good eye. Anyway, I think the one possible challenger to that title is Nickel Creek. They're another primarily bluegrass band that gets played on country stations. I don't know if they're even still active right now, but I think Old Crow Medicine Show, I think they're more famous, and I think they also have more credibility, more critical cachet, more prestige associated with them. And I think if we look at track 1 of Remedy, which is titled
Brushy Mountain Conjugal Trailer,
I think we get kind of a taste of both why they are the biggest bluegrass band in the world and also why some non-rural affiliated critics were so quick to establish this band's cred as a non-bluegrass band or as a punk band. Because what we're seeing...
Oh yeah, it's a dirty song.
It's a dirty song, but I think that's part of the pitch, is that this is a version of bluegrass that is loose and raunchy and sort of frank about the realities that its target audience would have. For instance, there are too damn many people in prison.
Yeah.
Such that singing about the conjugal trailer is a point of entry for this album. And I think it's not an accident that this song winds up as track 1, because it's establishing that tone, it's establishing that theme. The album begins and ends on songs about prison. So it's sort of a thematic sandwich in that way.
It's also just kind of the best song to like acclimate you to what this band is.
Yeah. And
like there are a lot of albums that start off on not necessarily the best song, but the best song to get you in their particular groove.
It's true, and I can think of maybe one other song on this album that could have served that purpose, but probably not as good as Brushy Mountain Conjugal Trailer would have.
Mm-hmm.
Doc's Day, I think, could also have been a decent introduction to who this band is.
He said, I like what I see, but it's not like I saw way back in old Doc's day. He said, if you want to rock, listen to Doc. If you want the girls, better pick like Merle. Cause them high country blues still blow.
I don't think Doc's Day is dirty enough.
Yeah, it doesn't showcase that aspect of the band. And, for other examples, I mean, you've got...
By the way, when I say dirty, I don't mean thematically, I mean tonally. Like, the production is very professionally unfinished.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's also raunchy. I mean, it's dirty in both senses. There are a lot of senses to dirty, aren't there? It's not corrupt. It is rough around the edges production-wise. It has that quality that I myself, as a recording artist, have never been able to capture. This quality of feeling like you're about to go off the rails, but always managing to stay on the beat and together as a band.
Yeah, they have a really weird rhythm. It's very hard to do without the music.
Yeah.
Like, I try singing some of the songs from it, especially Brushy Mountain Conjugal Trailer, and without the accompaniment of the music, I cannot figure out the rhythm.
I think part of that is also... I think it's not just the rhythm, but in fact the harmony. Brushy Mountain Conjugal Trailer doesn't work as a solo melody. You need all the voices.
I guess, yeah.
And that's true of a lot of these songs. So the signature sonic elements we're dealing with: banjos, fiddles, mandolins, in a few instances the accordion, a lack of drum kit, and vocal harmonies.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds like it could have been recorded in someone's backyard with proper sound isolation.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point here. In fact, in Doc's Day, they have a line about selling their drum kit. So they're very frank about that. There's I can't even remember looking over the track list here. I think they did use a snare drum on a few of these tracks, but not many. Oh, and I think Brushy Mountain Conjugal Trailer also has a genuine jug. I think there's somebody blowing on a jug in that song.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Boom, 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 boom. That's one of the things that makes bluegrass music what it is. It's the ingenuity with a lack of professional instruments or with only cheap instruments available. And, not having a lot is basically the theme of about half of the songs on this album. Brushy Mountain Conjugal Trailer.
Honestly, that's what most of bluegrass music is about.
Yeah, but here it's raised from subtext up to text. Brushy Mountain
yeah.
Conjugal Trailer, 8 Dogs, 8 Banjos, Firewater, Doc's Day, Shit Creek. There's a song on this album called Shit Creek. I mean, come on.
I love it.
This is their aesthetic, that they're presenting a defiant, sometimes even protest level thematic quality within the restrictions of a poorer aesthetic, a financially poorer aesthetic than modern country would provide.
I mean, this is sort of a thing for me. I generally just kind of don't like country music, like country western, to distinguish it from, Appalachian bluegrass or hillbilly music.
All right, do your thing.
So, when I was first listening to this album, or at least when I was first re-listening to it, because you recommended it to me probably when it was new 6 years ago, and I didn't remember a lot of the songs on here, but when I was re-listening to it, Dearly Departed Friend came on, which is a fine song, I guess, but that's a country song. I was so upset because I thought I was listening to a good old bluegrass album, and someone took off my straw hat and gave me a 10-gallon hat without telling me. I was so upset at who put this country western music in my bluegrass album. And Firewater does the same thing.
They put him back to back on the album too.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, Sweet Amarillo and Mean Enough World kind of toe the line a little bit between the two genres.
So I have a thing about Sweet Amarillo, but we'll come back to it.
Yeah, but I mean, they are deeply related, but like, I was so offended. Yeah, I generally don't really like country music that much. There's kind of Bo Burnham more or less put it best. He did a whole song about how country music is largely pandering, and that a lot of the performances are performative.
Out, hear that subtle mandolin. That's textbook pandering. I own a private ranch that I rarely use. I don't like dirt. One verse, one chorus.
And
well, he's wearing makeup.
Yeah, I know, right? And Dolly Parton herself even says, it takes a lot of effort to look this authentic.
Yeah, that's true. And Dolly Parton, by the way,
which
had a
in this podcast
turn.
We stand Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton's a goddess. I don't care
Absolutely.
what genre she plays.
Absolutely. Dolly Parton is a hero.
But yeah, there are some country acts I'm okay with. I don't really object to Willie Nelson. I like 2/3 of the Hank Williams. There's a few Toby Keith songs I think are okay. Some of them are just some of the good ones.
We're gonna do a whole thing about the ghetto of being a so-called good country artist.
Oh, okay. You've got a thing planned for this, don't you?
Oh, I certainly do. And there are some, oddly enough, a lot of them aren't coming out of America.
Hi everyone, this is Ben Wright Human, cartoonist extraordinaire. I'm the guy responsible for all the iconography on this podcast. So when I'm not making John and Harrison look good, I'm creating independent comics, and my latest graphic novel, The Letters of the Devil 2, The Legacy of L, is being kickstarted this month. The Letters of the Devil is a mystery series about what would happen if someone exposed your deadliest secrets to random strangers. In this entry, we follow Melina Quinn, a criminology student who is writing her thesis on the events of the first book. Melina gets roped into investigating a friend's suicide after discovering that they may have been driven to do it after receiving an email from the series' antagonist, L. Melina's investigation will lead to discoveries she could never have anticipated. Secrets will be revealed, lives will be lost, and reality will come crashing down around a world unprepared for the truth. Backers of the Kickstarter can receive copies of the book as a PDF, paperback, or as a special edition, with a handmade book sleeve and a custom ciphered letter from L. Missed out on reading the first book? That's okay. There are reward tiers that get you both books. I am also offering a limited number of original 9x12 ink and graphite illustrations based on the style of the series. The Kickstarter for The Letters of the Devil 2 will run until March 1st, so hurry over to www.lotd-comic.com and become a backer. Again, that is www.lotd-comic.com. bluegrassmusic.com. Rock on, guys, and never stop drawing.
But yeah, so I genuinely
go ahead.
just don't really like the pickup truck and I love America type country music. And I think that's part of what makes my general fondness for bluegrass feel even weirder to me. But there's just sort of a emphasis on community, I think, in a lot of bluegrass music that
Okay, yeah.
I personally really like, whereas a lot of Western music tends to be very mythologized superheroism, where it's, you know, me and my truck kind of thing.
Yeah, okay. That's true.
You know, and I'm mostly just rationalizing this after the fact. I really can't say. It's just I react well to one and I don't react well to the other.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, in the last few years, it's not even just this mythologizing of a man and his truck, but we've seen the rise of bro country, which is basically just the party boy version of that same thing, where instead of just being about one man and his truck, it's about a crew of boys who are all gonna have some fun, but still just kind of listing the tropes of things they do to have fun or the things they have fun with.
Yep.
The alcohols
Kid
they
Rock
drink.
meets Chad Kroger.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're at now. That's not an original thought of mine, by the way. I mean, I follow two music critics on YouTube, Todd in the Shadows and the Rap Critic, both of whom have had versions of this argument where they talk about how modern rap and modern country are both diverging on this format where they're both just lists of things.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the curmudgeon-y, way too reductivist way of saying it, because obviously there are going to be shining diamonds standing out from the crowd of any genre, no matter how famous
Right.
it gets. But that's something that has stuck with me, and that this album, Remedy, does not do at all. The closest
you
we
know,
get...
you say that, but 8 Dogs, 8 Banjos is basically just a list of things.
Hot coffee, sweet tea. Hot coffee, sweet tea. Tell 'em what you need in the whole wide world. Tell 'em what you need, my pretty little girl. Hot coffee, sweet tea.
Okay, it is a list of things, but it's not a list of, like, brands. I was going to say, the closest we get to, like, mythologizing objects in that style is the bridge of Brushy Mountain Conjugal Trailer. Give me give me a double wide, just going into the specifications of the trailer in a way that I find almost parodic because of the level of detail going into this. I don't want to spend... I think we've already spent plenty of time on that
caravan
trailer.
for me ma. She's partial to the Periwinkle Blue.
Yeah, I think we've spent enough time on that one song. Could spend a whole
sorry.
hour on just that one song if we don't catch ourselves.
Fair enough. I'm going to kind of let you take the lead on the rest of these because I could talk about literally any of the rest of these songs because they're all good.
So, for what it's worth, I share your trepidations about modern country music, but I don't have your knee-jerk distaste for country as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did not take any issue with Dearly Departed Friend or Firewater. What I do want to make mention of, last week we were talking about what's the one song, or what are some bands that have a single song that is both the favorite song of fans and the most likely to be recognized by non-fans. And Old Crow Medicine Show is another one of those bands where they have the one canonical best song.
Do they?
They do. It's Wagon Wheel.
How do people pick a best?
It's Wagon Wheel.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not on here.
It's not on this album.
Yeah.
It was on their debut studio album, which was entitled OCMS. Now, Wagon Wheel has a story to it.
Okay.
Last year, Slate, the online magazine, they came out with a publication called The New American Songbook, which is they wanted to compile a list of what were going to be considered standards of music.
Oh God, this.
And there was only one country or western or bluegrass song on that entire list, and it was Wagon Wheel by Old Crow Medicine Show.
OCMS, man.
Yeah,
They're one of the good ones.
They're one of the good ones, aren't they? But, you know, my knee-jerk reaction when I saw that list was, Hey, that's not fair. That's a cover. Because I legit thought that song was older.
It definitely feels older.
Old Crow Medicine Show came out with that song in 2004. Now, the reason it feels older is because they wrote it by expanding upon a discarded Bob Dylan demo.
Of course they did.
From the Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid sessions, he had a demo that was just a little fragment of a song called Rock Me Mama. And they expanded it out into Wagon Wheel, and it became like the country standard of the 2000s. The one country song that all these critics who were commissioned by Slate agreed was going to be the one that was going to last a generation. And I can't say I disagree, because honestly, I always thought that it had already survived several generations before Old Crow Medicine Show got to it, when that was not, in fact, the case. Repurposing an old Bob Dylan demo worked so well for them that they decided to try it again here on Remedy. And that song was Sweet Amarillo.
Right.
So this is
Sweet Amarillo's really good.
Isn't it?
Even if it toes the line.
Sweet Amarillo, tears on my pillow. You never will know how much I cried. Sweet Amarillo, like the wind.
Yeah, so if you're talking about the canonical fans agree is the best song on this album, it's Sweet Amarillo. For the same... It is, yeah, and for the same reason that Wagon Wheel was famous, but obviously, Sweet Amarillo didn't have as much crossover appeal.
Yeah, that's kind of a sad, forlorn song.
Yeah.
It's
And you know what? I have no problem with it. I love it.
Also, I don't know how to say this in a nice way, and it's just going to sound kind of mean. It kind of sounds like a Cake country song.
You know, that sounds mean, but Cake had some serious country bona fides.
I know, right?
They played a lot of country songs.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how to make that sound nice. But I swear it's nice. But anyways, the point is, that doesn't have much crossover.
Yeah, you know, and listening to it in the context of that AV Club review where they talk about how it's really a punk album, I listen to Brushy Mountain Conjugal Trailer and I'm like, yeah, okay, I can kind of hear where you're coming from. Then I hear 8 Dogs, 8 Banjos and I'm like, what are you on about? This is not punk. This is unabashedly bluegrass. And then I hear Sweet Amarillo where he's talking about, damn this old cowboy for my foolish pride. And I'm like, you can't have it both ways, guys. And by guys, I'm talking about the critics, not the band.
Album?
Yeah.
Who put Cowboys in my bluegrass album? Who did it?
Bob Dylan did. I'm assuming that cowboy line was Bob Dylan.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know.
In which case, it's probably meant to be... From him, it's probably meant to be ironic, though.
Yeah, well, boy, I really should have done a little bit more research on this, because I know that the demo that Wagon Wheel was based on came from that Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid album. So Bob Dylan was kind of in a cowboy costume for that album, but it wasn't ironic. He wasn't doing a send-up of cowboy music. If you're versed in your Bob Dylan, you know that that's the album that has Knockin' on Heaven's Door.
Ah.
Which is a very famous Dylan song.
It's so bizarre that Bob Dylan did a cover of a Guns N' Roses song, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's covered a lot of people. He covered Miley Cyrus. He covered Peter, Paul, and Mary a lot.
Sorry, there are a lot of people my age with whom I associate who think that song was originally Guns N' Roses.
Really?
Yep.
Did they think Guns N'
don't know it's
Roses
a
wrote
cover.
Live and Let Die as well? I mean, come on.
I have no idea.
That's...
But
boy.
yeah, I have laid the smack down on some trivia for that one before.
Yeah, as well you should. That's an embarrassing oversight. So, I really should have looked up where the demo that they wrote Sweet Amarillo came from. I would guess it's also a discarded Billy the Kid session song, but I'm not 100% sure. And if that is the case, then probably the Damn This Old Cowboy for My Foolish Pride probably did come from Dylan, and it probably was not meant to be a joke.
It's just so weird for me to think of Bob Dylan as an authentic cowboy. But he has occupied a lot of really weird costumes over the years.
Indeed he has.
So, moving on, one of the things I think is kind of cool about sort of the structure of this album, you start off on Brushy Mountain Conjugal Trailer and 8 Dogs, 8 Banjos, which is as strong a declaration of intent as you can get, I think.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then things kind of move into square dance territory a little bit, with Sweet Amarillo and Mean Enough World before fully going on to the cowboy territory with Dearly Departed Friend and Firewater. And then after that, it's just a bunch of fun ditties.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Brave Boys is really upbeat. Doc's Day is... God, they're just so fun to sing.
Yeah, Doc's Day is an especially fun one because it's an autobiographical telling of how they were basically discovered by Doc Watson. They had been busking. They had been playing at little diners and doing open mics and stuff. And Doc Watson heard them and decided to kind of mentor them. Doc's Day is not 100% historically accurate, but, it's their... kind of mythologizing about this relationship they have with this famous player. I love how bluesy it is. I love the harmonica in that song, and I love the... it's almost like a tap dancer kind of rhythm that I'm really fond of. As well as, again, it's another mission statement kind of thing where it's explaining why they are the way they are.
Yeah, they're literally dropping the names of their influence here. Doc Watson and Merle Haggard, which... Merle Haggard, that's another one I'm totally down with.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it's just the entire back half of the album, with one notable exception, asterisk, it's just so fun.
Oh, yeah.
Every song is just a toe tapper.
Yeah, I especially like O Cumberland River from the back half. It's got that really strong 2/4, that boom, boom. Oh, Cumberland River.
Can't you hear me singing your song? Can't you hear me singing your song? John boat plowing up the deep green water. Look, yonder come Jimmy with the sun.
It's just the right tempo. I can't not groove along with it. And Shit Creek, we already talked about how refreshing it is to have
And also, Cumberland River is somewhat personal for me, just saying.
Oh, what?
It's about a flood.
Oh, right, yes. I thought you meant like you had some connection to the Cumberland River.
No, I just have a connection to a city getting overrun by water that floods.
Yeah, that's true. And Shit Creek, in another more metaphorical sense, is about similar material.
Yeah.
Which I just think it's refreshing to have a bluegrass album that's so frank about language and about how sometimes life sucks, even when they're being so upbeat about it.
Yeah. It's like the country version of ska music.
Yeah, well...
Oh man, I'm gonna get killed for that one.
Yeah, probably. Well... it's like Bob Dylan was a ska artist if you really think about it.
Hey, he wrote Maggie's Farm. Don't knock it.
That wasn't a Rage Against the Machine song?
Maggie's Farm?
I'm carrying the bit, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, that one just was so out there. It really caught me off guard.
So you said you wanted to talk about the Warden.
So, the Warden really kind of frustrated me. Because, one, it's another kind of country-esque song, but that's not even what really bothered me about it in this case. What bothered me is that it's a prison song, and, the album starts on a prison song, so it's bookended by a prison song.
Uh-huh.
But it's a prison song about sympathizing with the Warden, which...
Does he toss and turn? Does his conscience burn? Is he a prisoner too?
Just... you're allowed to sympathize with the Warden, I guess, but... in the context of a bluegrass song? In the context of hillbilly music? That just seems wrong to me.
I get the dissonance, but I also think it's noteworthy that he's sympathizing with the Warden in the greater context of the song, assuming that simply working for a prison is in and of itself immoral.
Yeah, there's this guy called the liberal redneck. I think he's a
comedian. Yeah, he's a comedian.
He is,
He's,
yeah.
Trey Crowder.
One of his bits when talking about Black Lives Matter is he kind of ends it on this, question to his fellow rednecks, which is, when did y'all start liking cops?
Wow, you do a really good Trey Crowder impression.
Thanks. Which is... That's just sort of what I think of when I hear this song of, when did you start liking the prison warden?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, especially because in the context of that YouTube video, it was like, people from the South don't actually have a good relationship with the police, so it's weird that they're suddenly lining up on Team Blue Lives Matter. Just the same as it's weird that they're all lining up behind Donald Trump, a guy who, if he hadn't been running for president as a Republican, most rednecks would probably have agreed they don't like very much.
Yeah, coastal elite, right?
Yeah.
And I'm mostly trying to sidestep that whole conversation anyways. I think the point about, why is a fundamentally bluegrass song about sympathizing with the warden? That really rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, it's weird that was a major point of dissonance for you listening to this, because the most noteworthy thing about it to me was that moral framework where you can't be a warden morally. You can't, if you're a warden, the moral burden of your work must weigh upon you to be so evil as to run a prison.
Yeah, but you don't generally sympathize with the people running the prison. I understand that there's a novelty to this, and I understand that the framing still makes it very clear that the warden is the bad guy, but I still don't think the warden in any hypothetical framework is worthy of sympathy, and that this song kind of inspires that is really weird.
That's fair.
He uses such heavy symbolic imagery to talk about how heavy the burden the warden carries is. But yeah, he says, down in this pen full of sorrow and sin, do the days weigh on his chest.
So, worse than that, he actually goes so far as to square the circle and say, is he a prisoner too?
Yeah.
Which I guess if you're going to criticize the song, the main avenue of criticism has got to be, no! Obviously no!
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the moral enormity of his work weighs on him, but he gets to go home and sleep in his own bed and lay with his wife if he has one. I mean, come on!
Yeah. And, here's the weird thing. If Johnny Cash made this song, which, honestly, Johnny Cash pretty easily could have written this song, I think it would have played a lot differently in the 60s, but this song was written in 2014. I just kind of really wanted to kind of bring that home, that, there is something of a jailhouse tradition in country music, and sometimes that involves a bit of jocularity with the prison guards or even the warden in some sense, but the prison climate has changed drastically for the worse in the past 50 years.
That's true, but I think that climate change, boy, that's an unfortunate wording. I think the changing mores of how prison culture works has been largely overlooked in this album. I think they're still taking a fairly quaint small town view of prison.
I guess. Yeah, I mean, maybe this is meant to be a throwback, but that is not clear in...
No, yeah, I agree.
But yeah,
I think that's also where we're kind
of getting... And the sad thing is, it's a good song!
It is a good song, yeah.
I kind of do wonder how authentic their relationship to the legacy is, but it kind of doesn't matter, because if they can do it this well...
Yeah, and I am also not a bona fide country person. I'm not a gatekeeper of who is and who isn't country, or who isn't or is bluegrass. But they were inducted into the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah, that's not
And,
nothing.
you know, on their debut album, they wrote one of the most enduring country songs ever. So, you know, I don't know. I can't proclaim. But it seems like the people who can already have. And they have landed on the side of Old Crow Medicine Show being absolutely part of the canon.
Yeah.
So, Harrison.
Yeah, man. That works, I guess.
So, Harrison, at the end of every episode, we arbitrarily choose a key track, which is a track that is either our favorite or says something in particular about the album or is emblematic of it in some way. We don't share them with each other, so it's sort of fun to see if they line up. Spoiler alert, today they are not going to line up. What was your key track today?
How do you know what my key track is?
I don't, but I know what my key track is.
And you know I didn't pick it?
Yes, I am very confident that you didn't pick my key track.
Okay. The funny thing is, if you were to ask me like what my favorite track on the album was, it would probably be Sweet Amarillo or maybe even Brushy Mountain Conjugal Trailer, which is a really good song and also a great declaration of intent. But for me, my key track is actually just it's the song that is just my favorite to sing. And dear God, Sweet Home is just a fun song to sing along to.
Two hobos on a railroad line, I'm getting ready to go. Pulling on a bottle of burgundy wine, I'm getting ready to go.
I enjoy it so much. As far as I'm concerned, it's the best song on the album to sing to. With the close second being Tennessee Bound, but you know, Sweet Home wins it by a country mile.
Oh man, I kind of wish we'd spend more time in the main portion of the episode talking about those two songs, because I agree, they're both really fun songs, they're both great sing-along numbers. I didn't have a lot to say about them otherwise, though.
Yeah, well, what was your key track that you are so certain I don't share with you?
A key track for me is not necessarily the same thing as your favorite song or the one that you think is the best, but when I'm listening through an album, I do kind of pick my favorite song and then try to figure out whether it's also justified as a key track pick, or if there's maybe another song on the album that's more emblematic or more of a centralized version of what the album is going for. And this is not one of those. I had to pick the song that was indeed my favorite this time around, and that is Dearly Departed Friend.
Oh, that's how you knew. Okay.
I told you, I was very sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Very sure that we weren't going to line up.
Standing by the grave of a dearly departed friend, with nothing much to say except sorry it turned out like it did.
Dearly Departed Friend, I just love as a character study. I mean, it's got a lot of small details. It doesn't go on and on and on the way certain podcast hosts might. But it's got some really nice, concise details, like, for instance, the line about a truck backfiring and how that shook up some of the guys at the funeral.
Yeah.
Or the lines about the deceased character's mom's new boyfriend, and how he said he wished it had been him, and the singer says, "I wish it was too." I find it refreshing, especially in the context of the military culture. It's refreshing to me to hear a song in this country context that is, in fact, kind of skeptical about U.S. military intervention. And, you know, the characters here, they're mourning their friend who died serving, and maybe are wondering whether it was worth it, whether it was worth his life. So, I mean, 21 years old is too young for anybody to go. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
And this song really rests in that melancholy. So after all that, Harrison, I just have one question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you like Remedy as a whole?
You know, it's weird because, like, I figured I was going to like it, but I ended up being surprised just how much more I liked it than I expected, and kind of remembering how much I liked it back in the day. So yeah, I liked it, yeah.
Good answer. Yeah, and this is one of my favorites as well. I've never gone a long time without listening to this album. It's been one that I've put on every once in a while ever since it first came out. So, old favorite of mine. Really love it. Glad we got to spend an hour talking about it.
Yeah, a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but definitely a fun chat.
So, we are now at the portion of the podcast where we run our bi-weekly numbers game. The Play Disc Request Lottery.
Woo!
That is a lot of excitement for a lottery. Anyway, the way this works is that we've had a number of requests from patrons, friends, fans, and people who have been kind enough to sit down with us for interviews. And each one of those requests has been assigned a number between 1 and 99. So we're going to roll some dice, which I have right in front of me. I'm recording this on video as well for posterity to make sure we're not screwing around with the numbers here. And based on the results of that die roll, we may or may not interrupt our planned schedule to cover one of these requests.
Cool.
Harrison, I've asked you in previous episodes to pick red or black, but here I'm going to do something a little kinky, and I'm going to mix them together here. Red and black.
Rakdos!
Oh. Okay. Are we ready?
Yes, I am ready for you to do everything.
Cool. And today's number is 97, and I'm putting it upside down. Oop. That was a 9. Don't worry. Don't worry, fine people. Okay. 97 is today's number. Let me glance over at our spreadsheet real quick-alike. 97 does not correspond to a request at this time. We missed Primus by 2 numbers. That would have been fun. But, having rolled a 97, our episode 2 weeks from now will be a regularly scheduled episode. So Harrison, why don't you tell the good people what you picked for 2 weeks from now?
If I remember correctly, our next album is going to be Iron Maiden's Peace of Mind. And that's peace spelled
right.
Piece, you know, because it's a clever joke and a pun, because it's a piece of your mind.
Boy, I didn't get that until, like, the week before we sat down to record this.
Wait, are you serious?
I got peace of mind, like a piece of my mind, but it wasn't until I said it out loud that I realized it was a play on peace of mind, like tranquility.
Okay, that's hilarious.
I am not a smart man.
So yeah, that's gonna be our next episode. Looking forward to talking about that one.
Yep, 2 weeks. We're gonna get our metal on. So we hope you join us next week, but that will do it for this week. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. First and foremost, I want to thank our good friend Ben Wright Human for providing promotional art for us. You can find more of his work at bwhcomics.com if you'd like. Also, his Kickstarter is in its final stretch, so go over to lotd-comic.com. It stands for Letters of the Devil, lotd-comic.com, and support his new work. I read his first graphic novel, Letters of the Devil 1. It's very good. You really ought to check out the sequel. Ben also supports us on Patreon, along with Vita Porabil, Chase DeMonte, and Adam Herchak. We are extremely grateful for all their support, and listeners, if you would like to join them in supporting us, you can visit patreon.com/playdiscpodcast to make a monthly contribution. It's completely optional, but if you do donate, we'll read your name at the end of each episode, and we'll give you access, such as an entry into our request lottery. So you can clutter up our number scheme here and increase the odds that we pick something. And having your voice added chanting, "Play Disc!" in our opening theme song. You'll also have access to a library of bonus episodes where Harrison and I discuss movies about music. We have one's on Pitch Perfect and Idlewild, and we're still trying to figure out what the third one's going to be next month.
Yeah, one of my friends has already listened to that and decided to watch Idlewild based on that episode.
Oh, apologize to him for us, please. I was very clear. I did not mince words in that episode. That movie is worse than I remembered. Anyway, if you want to get in touch with us, we're not hard to find. Our email address is playdiscpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook under the name Playdisc Podcast. We're on Twitter and Instagram as @playdiscpodcast. I hope you join us in 2 weeks for a discussion of Iron Maiden. But until then, catch you on the B-side. And now, a quick word on copyright. Today's episode used clips from several songs by Old Crow Medicine Show, namely Brushy Mountain Conjugal Trailer, 8 Dogs, 8 Banjos, and Dearly Departed Friend, written by Ketch Secor, Doc's Day, written by Secor and Critter Fuqua, O Cumberland River, written by Secor, Fuqua, and Chance McCoy, Sweet Home, written by Secor and Kevin Hayes, The Warden, written by Felix Hatfield and Gil Landry, and Sweet Amarillo by Secor, Fuqua, and Bob Dylan. Rights to the recordings of these songs are currently owned by ATO Records. We also used a clip from Country Song written by Bo Burnham from his show Make Happy, copyright by Netflix. We've used these short clips for purposes of commentary without formal licensing, as allowed under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, also known as fair use. The Playdisc theme song was written and recorded by me under my stage name John Eric, and all other aspects of the Playdisc podcast are jointly owned by myself and Harrison Porabill, and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 International License.